back, all you crazy Star Wars nerds, to another episode of the Rule of Two podcast. Podcast with a K about all things Star Wars. I am your host, Sean Ritter, and as always, my trusty partner in crime, Mr. Aaron Richland.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
We've already established that it's going good. Did we not?
Maybe. I don't know.
I can't remember.
It's not like the listeners can respond to me. I should say, hey Sean, how's it going?
Yeah, that's probably more appropriate.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today,
Today
man?
we have another episode of our Holocron Data Dump, doing the second in the new Thrawn series, written by Timothy Zahn. And this one is Thrawn Alliances. So I'm going to dump my data on you.
Dump it all over, man.
Oh, I'm going to dump it all over your face.
I'm ready to take your dump.
Because you're going to, absorb the knowledge and forget about it in a couple weeks.
Most likely. So let's jump in. Last time, I'm trying to remember where we ended with the first Thrawn book.
Let's start with a recap of the Thrawn book. So a couple weeks ago, we did this with the first Thrawn book, kind of in anticipation of the new Thrawn book. And if you haven't listened to that yet, I highly recommend listening to it because
or reading it, like the old traditional way.
You could read a book for a couple days or weeks, depending on how fast you read or listen, whatever. Yeah. Or you could listen to a 20-minute, 40-minute podcast and just get the gist.
Well, that too.
Gist? Either way.
Good gist.
So, quick recap. The first Thrawn book goes through the start of Thrawn within the Empire and his rise through the ranks from, going through the Academy all the way through becoming Grand Admiral of the Empire.
The Thrawn origin story.
Yeah, you could say that. And this one is a little different. So first I'll start with, let's, again, as always, spoilers. So if you have not read it and want to read it,
we need a button. We need to add some sound effects like
the Rogue One. Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Spoiler alert. That's the spoiler alert.
That is it. That's your one and only spoiler warning. If you go past this point, then you might as well not even read the book because I'm going to tell you everything about it. Not everything, just a lot.
Let's go.
All right, so let's start with first, there's a couple timelines within this one. This is Thrawn Alliances, written by Timothy Zahn.
Wait. How did the last one end? You didn't say that.
Oh, the last one ended with Thrawn becoming Grand Admiral. And it ends with Eli. The epilogue is Eli Vanto, his trusty aide. Yes. And he is going off into space. And he goes off into the unknown regions, and he comes across a ship, and it happens to be the Chiss, and the person in the Chiss ship says something along the lines of, "You must be the one that Thrawn sent. Welcome, let us learn together." And that's how the book ends.
And he's got all that diary, that knowledge that Thrawn has passed on to him. So, cool. So Thrawn Alliances.
Thrawn Alliances. This one is a little different than the first one. It follows two different timelines. One is within the Clone Wars, sometime between the time that Ahsoka left and the end of the Clone Wars.
Interesting.
So then
that's super cool.
Yes, and then the other time period, the now time period. So that one was the then. This one is the now.
So this is before the Empire.
So that was, yes. The other one is sometime during the Star Wars Rebels, I believe. It's sometime after they go to Atollon, the planet, where he finds that Nogri, the creature in Rebels that just won't die.
The Bindu?
No. Thrawn's little, scaly gray guy.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever he finds that, sometime between that and the end of Rebels, obviously.
Okay. So during the Clone Wars, that's technically before the timeline from the first Thrawn book.
Yes, it will be.
Because Thrawn doesn't speak Galactic Basic at this point.
Well, no, he does. He always has.
Oh, actually, so he was just fucking with us during the beginning of the first book. I think he
was fucking with us in the beginning of the first book. Because, he was fucking with them in general. He came to learn about the Empire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's an honorable dude in terms of, he's given his pledge to do something. He's going to do it, which we'll talk about a little bit later with Alliances. So the then time period, again, sometime between Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order and the start of Episode 3, or the end of the Clone Wars, and the now time period sometime after Atollon, before the end of Star Wars Rebels. Because, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen Season 4, skip ahead 12 seconds. Thrawn blasts off in floating space whales, so into space.
Right, he blasts off, and he's with Ezra.
Yes.
Right? They're like floating out in space. Mm-hmm. Presumably both still
through
alive.
Hyperspace. It's confirmed they're alive through Dave Filoni. How? I don't know. But, I'm glad because, from our last episode, you might have heard the rumors that Thrawn may appear in Episode 9. Who knows? We'll see.
Right. And Dave Filoni is the creator of
Rebels and
Clone Wars and this new show.
Yes.
Resistance,
correct. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, this book starts out with Thrawn and Vader talking to Emperor Palpatine. He tells them of a disturbance in the Force that really only those two can solve. Like his two top people, there's some disturbance in the Force off in the unknown regions or close to the unknown regions. And he sends them to figure out what it is and why. And it's clear from the start they don't like each other, Vader and Thrawn. There's some animosity or something. Vader doesn't like the fact that there's someone else that Palpatine is trusting his, is trusting just in general. Like he trusts Vader. And Thrawn, I just don't know. It's really hard to read, but, it mentions him not wanting to do this. Oh, can't you just send Vader by himself? I have to take care of these rebels on Lothal or whatever. And Vader, he mentions, Thrawn has failed him in the past. Why would he go with him, sort of thing, even though he knows he's this master tactician guy. But so, they're not going to tell no to the Emperor. So they have to do it. And it ends essentially with Palpatine kind of like thinking to himself, like, it's time for Thrawn to face his future and Vader to face his past. And that's kind of how like the prologue ends. And it's like,
interesting.
What the hell is that about? So they're going off in the unknown regions to track down what this is. And that's how the book starts. Like right after that, it goes right into the then time period. And they kind of go back and forth within the same chapter. Kind of things are very related, right? And it starts with the then time period and or Padme is in it, and if you recall, I mentioned that before.
Yes.
And she is telling Anakin of a thing that her handmaiden told Padme about something going on this planet named Batu, which is on the...
Batu.
Yeah, Batu, I believe, or something like that.
Okay.
And she tells her that something serious is there, and then she went to go check it out, and she wants Padme to meet her there. So Padme and Anakin are talking about going out to this Batu place, and, Anakin can't because he has to go, be a hero in the war. And
of course.
So Padme decides to do it herself. And they come up with this plan of, I'm going to send you encrypted messages, blah, blah, blah. I report back, and if something goes down, then, come find me, which you can do easily. Turns out that he doesn't hear from her, so he travels out there by himself in the unknown regions, comes up on the Batu planet, and there's some strange ship there that hails him, and it turns out it's Thrawn. And Thrawn...
Interesting.
Thrawn essentially says, I know you're looking for somebody in the Nubian ship. I can help you find it. And then he's like, what the hell? So then, long story short with that, they partner up. Anakin and Thrawn, back in the Clone Wars time period, partner up to kind of find out what's going on.
Interesting. What's the name of the Chiss homeworld? It's not this Batu planet.
No. I don't know. I would assume it was Chiss, but I could be wrong. I should probably know that. But
I guess so. Anyway,
it's somewhere.
So they're teaming up. They're looking for Padme.
They're looking for Padme
in the unknown regions. Somewhere.
Yes, somewhere. And it kind of goes back and forth in the time period there. First of all, they land on Batu. They find the Nubian ship. I think that's what they call it. Nubian, right?
Yeah.
And they find her ship, and no one's there. There's like pirates there trying to break in, and they dispense of them. Blah blah blah. They end up going into the Padme storyline. She had went into town. Her handmaiden had been killed and kind of left to be displayed out by the local the local bar, and she
brutal, man.
Yeah, so and she recognized it as a sort of like message, sort of thing. And so she was playing dumb, like she wasn't from the Republic. She's somebody else. So then it kind of goes back to the other timeline, and the source of the disturbance is coming from the same region as Batuu, right? So they are on their way, and Vader and Thrawn are on their way. So we're kind of going back and forth.
Back to
this
the
is
Empire
the now.
now.
Yeah. And Vader and Thrawn get pulled out of hyperspace on their way to the unknown regions, and they don't know why. They try to go again, they get pulled out again. They're like, what the hell is going on? And they notice there's like some destruction on a planet nearby that would only be caused by something massive. Like it wouldn't be a ship, and at this point the Death Star is not there.
Right.
So, it's being built.
It's being built, but
and they're saying like only certain things like volcanoes or asteroids could cause damage like that, and there's really no signs of it. So they end up landing on Batuu because they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they find essentially these people are terrified. The locals are terrified there, and why they're terrified there is really unknown. But there is the
locals on Batuu. Are they on Batuu at this point?
They're terrified because something is really just controlling them, and the source of the disturbance is on Batuu, and Vader feels it. There's an attack from ships, and the source of the disturbance essentially vanishes, and he's kind of left wondering why that's happening.
What the fuck is going on?
And first of all, he also mentions like the source was so like when he felt it was so faint, right? When he was on the planet, like literally within I don't know. They mentioned the source came from a building that was really nearby, and he was like, "How the fuck did Palpatine feel this all the way in Coruscant? Like it's insane." So that's what little drops there of how dope as fuck Palpatine is.
That's how Palpatine roll, bro.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of minor things to the story here that I kind of want to skip over. Like they kind of go back and forth a lot. And
between the two timelines,
they do, yeah. And you find out that the Separatists and the then timeline are on this planet called Mokibja, and Padme ends up leaving Batuu to go to Mokibja because she finds her handmaiden ship. Her handmaiden had left a message, said go here. So she goes to Mokibja, finds a plant that is being run by the Separatists.
Oh, that's the thing that she found that she wanted her to bring her out there for in the first place. I see.
Anakin and Thrawn, they kind of track their way through to Mokibja.
Mokibja.
Yeah.
That's a funny name.
I know.
Sorry, keep going.
So, to take a step back real quick, there is a period where Anakin is talking to Thrawn. They're in the same ship together, and, there's a lot of conversations going on, and he's mentioning the Ambassador Padme, right? The Republic Ambassador Padme. And he's not going to tell her, my wife, my love of my life sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you kind of get the hint that Thrawn knows, right? And he sets him aside pretty early on in the book, and he essentially says, like, look, I know you're trying to find your ambassador, but the objective here is victory, like nothing else. Getting to find out why she came here and stopping it is the ultimate goal, nothing else.
Why does Thrawn
kind of
care?
Hinting, and we're confused at that, right? We're like, why is he trying to help? It's kind of not really
what's his objective?
So
and why is he out there in the first place?
I think he claims that he was just there and noticed a few things. They don't really tell us why yet. So that's kind of important because of later on. And then, so he finds out where Padme went, they find out where Padme went, and this is where like the symmetry kind of comes into place of the then time period and the now time period.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, let me actually step back to the now time period real quick. And remember I said there's clearly no love lost between the two of Vader and Thrawn.
Right.
Pretty much at every corner, Vader, for some reason, he kind of seems like a little bitch in this book, which I didn't really like. I mean, it was kind of cool because I love Thrawn.
Kind of like a jealous thing, or like
anytime he said something, he's like, yeah, well, you failed that one time and on Adelon or whatever. What about that time you failed?
Daddy only loves me and not you. I'm the favorite.
It kind of feels that way, and I don't like it. So the symmetry, this is where the symmetry comes into place. Now, back in the then time period.
Yes, the Clone Wars.
Yes, Anakin says to Thrawn, I need you to trust me. Like, he has this plan to break into the mining facility on Mokibja that they they end up tracking like Padme to, and he's like, I need you to trust me. And that's how the chapter ends, right? And then it goes to the now time period. And it starts with Thrawn saying, all I'm doing is asking you to trust me. And I don't know if it's intentional, but it seems pretty intentional.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the symmetry between the time periods, which is pretty cool to me. I really like that. So, and this is because, so he's asking him to trust him because Vader says he felt the disturbance in the Force, essentially dismisses it as like a not a big deal sort of thing. And Thrawn is saying like, it is a big deal. He mentions, he's like, long ago, I could have abandoned Anakin once I achieved my duties, but I did not. And I'm asking you to do the same thing to me. He's talking to Vader about that time period. Right, and he mentions Anakin, right? And it makes Vader feels like he kind of knows because he keeps dropping these hints. Like the book does it with the all I'm doing is asking you to trust me, and then he mentions this about Anakin. I could have abandoned Anakin, but I didn't. I'm asking you to do the same for me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So clearly knows.
Clearly,
Vader doesn't like it, and he's trying to pretend like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Correct. So they go to Mokibja too, I believe. And they run into these aliens called Grisks, right? Grisks. Yes, there's some formidable folks in the unknown regions that are...
What do they look like?
I don't know. They describe in the book, they seem like they're... the way that it was described to me made me feel kind of like it was the Yuuzhan Vong, but not like as tied to living things, right?
Interesting.
But they did have these pods that were kind of the source of the disturbance, and it was kind of like, what are these pods? They didn't really recognize them. They bring them back to the ship.
This is in the now period, right?
This is in the now period, yeah. Now Thrawn essentially, like, he's confused. He seems confused, but I think he's working through all the mechanics as to what's going on.
Right.
With these Grisks, they, like I said, Vader feels like the mission's done. He's asking him to trust him. He told him he didn't abandon Anakin, and he also mentions that Palpatine has interest in the unknown regions, and that they're there for a reason, and that these Grisks and getting to the bottom of what the disturbance is will satisfy Palpatine, as opposed to just saying what the disturbance was and leaving, right? But Vader kind of gets the feeling that Thrawn is kind of in it for himself, and that,
of course,
he's not in it for himself. He's not in it for the Empire. That he's in it for Thrawn and the Chiss. Then they end up finding out that these Grisks have stolen these Chiss children, and the reason they stole them are because they are Force sensitive. And they aren't. It's really confusing the way they describe this. They essentially say that in the Chiss lineage, right, Force users kind of lose their powers as they grow older. So the younger you get them, the better it is, because they use because the unknown regions is so sporadic because of it's the unknown regions for a reason. It's so crazy. There's really no hyperspace lanes. You go out there, you die if you don't know what you're doing. That's why no one goes there, right?
Yeah.
The Chiss use these children as navigation mechanisms. They use the Force to say they steer like ships through hyperspace.
Using these children,
these Force sensitive children. They call them third sight. The Chiss word for it is something crazy. It's like Ozali Ishembo or something like that.
Okay.
You know what it translates to?
What?
Skywalker. So when Thrawn heard
what?
I'm Anakin Skywalker from the Republic, he was like, whoa. Huh. Interesting.
Oh, shit,
Yeah.
man. Shit. That's what does that mean? What?
I mean, they kind of leave it at that. Now, with the Grisks, they end up kind of getting into this battle, kind of taking a step back. These Grisks kind of used this different power that they didn't really know about to force them out of hyperspace. So they were essentially destructing the pathway from the Empire space into the unknown regions. So the Grisk were to try to cut off.
But they were using the Chiss children to do this.
So they were using the Chiss children to help them navigate through the unknown regions. They were
but were they using them to pull Vader and Thrawn out of hyperspace?
You know, I forget what the actual mechanism was, but they also were using similar technology to, I believe, pull down like moons into the planets, and that's why, like earlier on when I said there was a planet that was so destructed, and like, they didn't know what it was, they kind of hinted at that's what it was. Like the Gris kind of pulled this moon down with these like gravity things. But they were also cloaked, which is you can't really do both at the same time, apparently, in the Star Wars universe. But they found out a way to do it, and Thrawn figured it out, essentially trapped them, and he started to destroy them. And that's really the storyline of the now. Like that was the source of the disturbance. That's Thrawn facing his future, right? Because what he ended up doing with that battle is he predicts that the Grisk are watching the Empire. They're watching the Chiss, and they're trying to learn from them. All right. So I'm going to step back a little bit. That's kind of like the real storyline with the now. That's what the source of disturbance was. In the then time period, they all go to this Mokija, this mining facility. Padme's there. She's getting help from the locals because she had to like infiltrate her way in. Mm-hmm. The Separatists have taken over the planet, the mine, and so she has to kind of sneak into this thing. Thrawn and Anakin, they kind of essentially just fly right in with a stolen ship they had, just saying that they're traitors, and not like traitors. They trade things. They're not
traders of things.
Yes. And as someone comes out, and someone old, tall, with an accent, kind of wearing a flowing royal cape. And it has a Serenian accent, right?
A Serenian accent? I'm unfamiliar with the term. Educate me.
So Sereno is, I believe, the name of the planet.
Sereno.
Yes, humans are from Sereno. I believe the head of Sereno is a count named Count Dooku.
Oh, shit.
So this is a Duke somebody. I can't remember the name. And Anakin recognizes him. Padme knows him as well. And they kind of get found out. They get put into
they're with
prison.
Padme at this point.
They're not. So they're not. They're in the same facility, different areas at this point. And Thrawn and
I'm getting Clone Wars cartoon flashbacks.
I know. Thrawn and Anakin kind of get put in these holding cells. Padme kind of has a suspicion because they cause a scene. Anakin does this really cool thing where he is standing in front of the Duke guy, mm-hmm. and he kind of throws his lightsaber when they aren't looking on the other side of the hangar, mm-hmm. and he turns it on and like kills some battle droids with it. And the idea is to make it seem like there was a Jedi stowaway on the ship. And he's like freaking out, like, oh god, we got to get inside, sort of thing. And R2's there, and he kind of like wiggles away freely because there's probably ports for R2 to hack everything for some reason,
as there always are.
As
there always are. So they don't know that Anakin's a Jedi.
They don't know that yet. No.
Aha.
And so they get put into the holding cells because I think they feel like something's up. And Padme, she ends up finding her way. They escape because Anakin says that he knows that Padme is going to find him, and he's like, give me 2 hours. And actually, that's where the just trust me thing comes in. That's when he's asking Thrawn to just trust me, like, wait 2 hours, Padme come. Padme doesn't come. They find their way out. And what they end up finding is that the Separatists are mining something, and it's totally secret. We don't know what it is. Anakin kind of runs into this battle droid, and they're shooting it, and it doesn't do anything to the battle droid. Like, it kind of dissipates the bolt all across his body. So he runs up and he hits it with his lightsaber, and the lightsaber shuts off.
What?
Yeah, he turns it on, does it again. Turns it on, does it again. He's like, what the hell? So it's essentially like an invulnerable battle droid, right?
Fuck.
And we find out that what they're actually doing is they're mining cortosis, and they found a way to weave it into the armor.
Cortosis.
So cortosis is...
why do I know cortosis?
See, I feel like there's something from KOTOR with that. From what I remember in Legends...
What's Legends?
Like what's not canon anymore. There's
Legends,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I feel like that was pretty much an indestructible armor that like batted away lightsabers and stuff. I think they use it in some Star Wars Rebels. I'm not too up to date on all that, but
it sounds very familiar. I don't know where I'm thinking of it from specifically,
and it causes this weave effect that when it gets hit, since it's weaved together, it blasts like the away, right?
It
dissipates it.
It distributes.
Exactly.
The energy of the impact or whatever.
And so they go further into the factory, and they find, oddly enough, clone armor being made with it. And Anakin's first thought is, oh shit, they're gonna infiltrate the clones, and they're gonna attack the Senate and the Jedi Temple and be indestructible, sort of thing.
Yeah,
like the Separatists are gonna do that.
Of course. What else could they possibly be doing?
So then, at this point, they've already met up with Padme. They break off to because they have a plan to essentially hack the system so that when the battle droids are firing, it essentially takes away the power of the cortosis or something like that. So that as they're firing, it's essentially destroying the battle droids. But it's like subtle enough that they won't see it in testing. I don't know. You know how QA is. They never test it fully. So they're off doing that. And Anakin finds Padme, like he senses she's in trouble, and Thrawn stops him. And he's like, no. He's like, remember, the mission comes first. Like, we have to finish this before, like, because if you go back there, the whole thing can be blown up. Like, and everybody could die, sort of thing. And he reluctantly agrees, and then they do that with the battle droids, and lo and behold, Padme's fine. It's all right. So they were right. They go and save him. Long story short, they essentially find a way to essentially destroy this thing without destroying the factory, right? Because if they just destroy the factory, they'll just pick it right back up. But their plan was to do this, to hack the system, to make them continue thinking that what they're doing is right, only to have it fail later on. This was like Thrawn's idea, right?
Of course, it was Thrawn's idea because he's a genius.
And so they can't make it look like they can't. Oh shit! So there's a period where Anakin is battling this invulnerable battle droid, but he can't kill it in a way that it makes him realize they understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So they essentially disable it somehow. I forget. He uses the Force to do it, and he props it up so that it's blocking the way. So that's what it was. So why wouldn't they destroy it? Oh, this super invulnerable battle droid got stuck in the doorway. They can't make it through to destroy it, so they just bailed, right? That was like the plan. But he fucking left R2 on the other side of that and just leaves.
What a dick, dude.
I know.
You fucking just leave R2 behind. So what I'm thinking is, it sounds like Thrawn knew kind of what was going on this whole time, because you said back before what Anakin, at least before he realized what was happening, Thrawn said, he took him aside and said, the mission comes first. Like, yes, we're about victory. This is not a rescue mission. And why would you say that? Yeah. He clearly knows that there's something crazy going on, and he's there for a purpose.
Correct. Now, this is where that kind of comes into play. So while Anakin's off trying to do that with the battle droid, Padme and Thrawn go off, and Thrawn leaves her. I think he ends up taking the lightsaber, like they find the lightsaber off on their own, because I don't think Anakin's had the lightsaber yet.
I thought you said he had his lightsaber and he was trying to destroy one of those droids. So
I may have the story, like the actual points and when this happened flipped around.
Okay.
But so Thrawn ends up, he uses the lightsaber at one point and like sticks it in the ground and finds their power generator for the shield.
For this factory?
Yes, and he says there that his people sent him to figure out essentially how to make these shields. Like he's there to like figure out how that happens. So he takes the shield power source and leaves.
And just leaves them there?
Yeah, and Padme is like, what the fuck, sort of thing.
What a douchebag, dude.
So then they're getting in trouble.
The shields that are not like the cortosis armor?
No, like the shield generator.
That's
a power shield.
You would think that the thing that they would want would be this cortosis weaved.
Yeah.
Like that sounds pretty usful too. Why is he
not
both. After that?
I mean, he might know. Okay, we can do that with cortosis now, so we can figure that out. Whereas how the shield generator is made, I don't know. I'm just speculating. Maybe but that was his mission essentially, right? So then he leaves. Anakin and Padme are kind of in trouble with these invulnerable battle droids. He comes back with this like electric gun that Thrawn. So Anakin and Padme are in trouble with battle droids later on. Thrawn comes back with this thing, saves them. They figure out that's what it is with the cortosis, and so they move on to like outside to get into a ship, and they end up leaving. The locals that helped Padme, like one of them, his name's Lebjaw. That was kind of a cool name.
Lebjaw.
He comes back with R2 like over his shoulder, and he's like, "Is this yours?" And Anakin's just like, "Oh yeah, sorry R2," and they hop on the ship. Like, bitch, you were literally about to leave him.
What a dick, dude!
I know. I was like, what the hell? That's not cool, Anakin.
No, man, that's not cool. Fucking cool.
So
you can't just leave your
kind of wrap that up
companion there, man.
Yeah,
fuck.
To wrap that up now, that the then timeline. The Handmaiden found out the Separatists were doing something. Padme goes to figure out what it is. With her handmaiden dies. Anakin goes out there, runs into Thrawn. They track down where Padme is. They find this mining facility. They're making cortosis armor for invulnerable battle droids, and for some reason, some clone armor. We don't know why. And they end up escaping. Anakin wants to blow up the mine. I don't know why. And much to the dismay of Thrawn and the local that's with them, they end up blowing it up. And that's when they part ways, Thrawn and Padme, and they end up leaving, right? Like right after that. But when they're leaving, Padme brings up, hey, we could use you in the Republic. Like, you should come over. And Anakin mentions Palpatine, says, we have Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. He's going to bring us to victory. You should come with us and make good relations with him. And Thrawn says, perhaps someday. That's kind of where he leaves it.
And he does perhaps someday. He does perhaps someday indeed.
And that's also, he kind of gives him a warning, gives Anakin a warning of saying that your idea that you had as to why they're doing this, to infiltrate like the Senate and that doesn't seem right. Like an attack of that nature, how does he say it? Successful attacks of that nature are like require larger numbers than what seemed prevalent there, right?
It's basically trying to tell him, hey, what you're thinking that they're doing probably wasn't what they're actually trying to do, so think again. Yeah,
and he essentially says that like a single massive attack like that, like that's that big of an attack on a single point like that, not only runs the risk of being like discovered and thwarted, but like that's their shot. If they miss it, then it's done.
Right.
And he says that he thinks that it's being done for, quote, some other purpose.
What's the other purpose?
Well,
or are you going to get there? Am I jumping ahead?
Yeah, I'm getting there. All right.
So wait, I'm okay. Now that's a good amount of information about the then time period. I'm trying to now remember where we left off with the now time period. I'm have a really
quick
bad
rundown of the now
memory,
time
man.
period. Well, I'm also terrible at describing this, which probably isn't good for a podcast host to be terrible at describing something. So rundown of the now time period. Thrawn and Vader, they go to the same area, and they find the Grisk, some
Grisk.
aliens from some formidable aliens from the unknown regions are stealing these children, Force using children, and they are using them to help them navigate, which is making them like that was a step up that Chiss had against everybody else. Is they were able to more easily navigate the unknown regions because they could do that,
right?
And that gave them an advantage over everybody. So that was a danger to the Chiss, and it was a danger to the Empire because they could, become even more formidable and come into the Empire's territory.
So did Palpatine want these children to train that? No, I mean, he wouldn't do that because that's not the Sith way, right? He doesn't really care about that kind of
they
shit.
could use them, right? Because in Rebels they have those Inquisitors and all that are there.
That's true.
So Dark Jedi, not really Sith. So they could have. Then so now they find these Grisk children, or these Chiss children. They save them and essentially take them back to the Chiss. Well, they don't take them back to the Chiss. I think they send them on their way back to the Chiss, and they have this battle with the Grisk. They recognize that the Grisk know the strategies of the Empire, and we find out that the Grisk have been watching them. They were using the same Cortosis armor that they were using back in the then time Thrawn
period.
suspects that the Grisk have been watching long enough since the Clone Wars that they told the Separatists about this Cortosis armor.
The Grisk were the ones responsible for the Cortosis mining in the first place when the Separatists were doing it in the then time period.
Yeah, and
so the Grisk have been fucking up this shit for the whole entire book.
They imply heavily that the Grisk were told the Separatists, and Thrawn mentions something along the lines of that's something with Dooku and how he knew it, and then Vader internally says but lo and behold, Thrawn doesn't know this, but Palpatine was the one behind it, and he was the one wanting the clone armor more so than the other armor so that it would help him with Jedi Order 66, right?
Wait. Sorry. Hold on. What now?
Okay. So, damn.
He wants the clone. Palpatine wants the clone armor, but the clone armor was from the then period when it was
Palpatine, Vader's saying that Thrawn doesn't know that Palpatine was behind the whole thing with wanting the Cortosis armor in the clone armor.
Okay.
And
embedded into the clone armor.
That essentially Thrawn was right. It was for another purpose. It was for Order 66 to help out Order 66 that they would be indestructible to the Jedi and be able to kill them more easily.
So, oh shit, dude.
Yeah.
So this separatist plant, quote unquote, was actually Palpatine's kind of. He was behind
the
it.
separatist
obviously.
Stuff was.
Well, I guess that's true. He was
right?
all
the
of
whole
it was.
entire Clone Wars were.
That's a really good point. Right. And they were out there, and it was actually Palpatine. Their end goal was to put this Cortosis in the clone armor. They didn't give a shit about the droid armor because they were testing it on the droid armor because they're gonna shut. He knew he was gonna shut them down anyway.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Crazy, right? Pretty cool. So within the epilogue of the now time period, because I didn't state this before, but what I was talking about with Thrawn telling Padme that he didn't perhaps someday about coming to the Empire or coming to the Republic to see Palpatine, and telling him that he thinks there's some other purpose. That was the epilogue of the then time period. So that ended the then time period.
Okay, so there's two epilogues. Do the epilogues happen right after?
Yeah,
right after one after the other in the book.
And then the now time period epilogue has Vader and Thrawn talking. Vader wants to know why Thrawn did some of the things he did. And
like with the Grisk and everything like that?
Why did he give... he gave some sort of message out there, and he's saying that the Grisk have been watching them this whole time, and that they're actually an enemy of the Empire. And to show that he wasn't being traitorous and wanting to start a war with the Grisk with the Empire to help the Chiss, that he essentially sent out this message and saying, I'm Commander Mithron Nu'Raudu or whatever, blah, 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 blah.
Mithron Nu'Raudu.
That's Thrawn's, Chiss name.
Oh,
he says on Thrawn. So
Mithron
Nu'Raudu.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's kind of a sick event. Mithron Nu'Raudu.
It's kind of funny. Early on in the book, when Anakin and Thrawn meet for the first time, he tells him, he says, my name's Mithron Nu'Raudu, but it's hard for non-Chiss people to say it, so you can just call me Thrawn. And Anakin's like, Mithron Nu'Raudu. He's like, Mithron Nu'Raudu. Yeah, Mithron Nu'Raudu. He's like, no, Mithron Nu'Raudu. And he's like, fine, I'll just say Thrawn. They have that dialogue there. It's really funny. He gives his Chiss name to essentially inform the Grisk that he's a Chiss. The Chiss are closer than the Empire at this point, so he feels
closer than the
Empire. Where they're at than the Empire is. They're that deepish into the unknown-ish regions, right? That he feels that the Grisk recognize it's a Chiss name, realize that the Chiss are helping the Empire, and go try to battle them first. So he's saying, look, I played my hand to them, and they know I'm Chiss. They're gonna battle them first. Gives us time to.
Who's gonna battle who first?
The Grisk. They're gonna battle the Chiss.
Oh.
So
he sicks the Grisk on his own people?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of hard to say, really. It's kind of what it seems like, but he's essentially saying that, I'm pledged to the Empire, right? And he actually says this one thing. This is kind of where I'm leading into now, where throughout the book, and we mentioned it earlier when he brought up Anakin to Vader, there's a strong hint that he knows Vader is Anakin. But
and that's something nobody knows except for Palpatine.
Palpatine and Vader, the only two people. Maybe.
I mean, Obi-Wan obviously knows.
Well, obviously, yeah, okay. So, and Yoda, yeah,
and Yoda. But those the 4 people in the whole galaxy who know.
Nobody else in the Empire knows. Everybody thinks it's just some,
some fucking badass
that came out of nowhere, sort of thing. So there's a lot of hints that they drop that he knows, and in the epilogue, he says, "If you recall, I said X, Y, and Z." And then Vader's
referring to a time when he said X, Y, and Z to him,
Anakin.
To Anakin.
Yeah, right. And he says it and continues on the way. And then Vader's like, "You made no mention of that to me." And he's like, "Oh, oops, I must have misspoken. I'm thinking of a different time." And then Vader, in his internal monologue, is like, he knows. How does he know? There's no way he knows. Nobody knows. There's absolutely no way. And then when he's telling him, Vader suspects him of being treasonous, like I mentioned, that he's actually there to help the Chiss and not the Empire.
Right.
And he says, "Look, I pledged myself to the Empire, just like I pledged myself to Anakin back in the day," or something like that. And Vader says, "Anakin Skywalker's dead." And Thrawn's just like, "I know." And Vader is saying to himself, not, "Oh, is he?" Or, anything like that. It's just, "I know." It kind of just leaves it at that, and I was kind of blown away that how in the holy hell
fuck does he know
that
he's a bad. I'm so glad that they made the decision to canonize him. He's such a fantastic character.
So that's pretty much the book. The Chiss children, Force users, the Skywalkers were the source of the disturbance. They rescued them. Which is kind of funny because that was a thing that they wanted to do. They wanted to rescue this thing, mainly because of Thrawn. But when you think of the Empire, you don't think of them going on rescue missions, right? The 501st is with them, and they go in not shooting to kill everything. It's kind of crazy. They really humanized it, made it look like the Empire's not this super evil thing, even though they are.
Interesting.
So you remember, harkening back to the beginning, when I say that Palpatine mentions that Vader's going to face his past and Thrawn his future.
Yeah.
That Thrawn's future is his people going to be okay, sort of thing. The Grisk are there. They're attacking. They're stealing the Chiss children. And it happens to be in the same location that Anakin met Thrawn. So it was a perfect thing to send the two of them back together to face their respective pasts and futures, which is pretty cool.
Interesting. So thoughts. What'd you think of the book overall?
I liked it. It's a good book. I really like. They didn't do the beginning chapter thing like they did in the first one, where he's kind of speaking in a diary tone, which was cool. They do. Oh, one thing they did do that I thought was cool. They called it double vision. So anytime Anakin was in a battle or something, it would go double vision, blaster to the left shoulder, blaster to the right shoulder, and then it would go then it would describe him deflecting those with his lightsaber or dodging them. So it was essentially saying, so it was showing kind of the Jedi vision, what they're calling double vision in this book, of how they can kind of see the future sort of thing. One thing I didn't forget to mention. So they are in the unknown regions, right? And it's kind of, they can't go into hyperspace very much, and they have to do something that Thrawn wants to do. And what
does Thrawn want to do?
Damn it! I was hoping you were going to ask. I can't remember the details. He's trying to trick the Grisk, so he's going into hyperspace, in and out, like getting stopped and stuff like that. And that's when he finds out where they are hidden, and he blasts them, and it starts the battle, right? So that's what his plan was, to keep going in and out and to figure out where they were. And they had to use Vader to navigate. He essentially says, you're more powerful than these children. You should be able to navigate this, no problem. Oh, one thing I did forget. One thing I did like was Thrawn at the end in the epilogue, when Vader and Thrawn are talking. He says something because he's accusing him of being a traitor. He's like, Vader says to Thrawn, do you expect me to believe that a skilled tactician like yourself hasn't tried to think of ways to kill me? And Thrawn's like, yes, I've thought of 3 ways. And then they just continue talking. It's hilarious.
That's so cool. I like that they dove into the relationship between Anakin / Vader and Thrawn.
I really like that portion the best, I think. Kind of going back to the clear respect the two men had for each other back then, to the kind of unwarranted animosity from Vader of, just trying to please his master all the time and not respecting this genius of a military person, right?
So one question that I've got is, what happened to Thrawn's sidekick dude from the first book, Eli Vanto?
Yeah. So that is one. So there's a couple things I don't like about the book. Well, that's one I don't really like. They don't really mention him at all. They mention him. So
they do mention it.
They mention him once at the very beginning. He has a new commander that's captain or whatever of his ship. He's the Grand Admiral or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the person I think it's Commander Farah or something like that. She says, just in passing, since the disappearance of Vanto, the mysterious disappearance of Vanto.
Oh.
And that's it.
That's it. We know that he mysteriously disappears, and that's all they give us.
It is very weird because they really leave off with the epilogue of book 1 as this, he's going to meet the Chiss to work with the Chiss. I was really expecting and hoping to see some more Eli Vanto, what exactly his mission was and why he went to the Chiss to see what he's up to now.
Seems like a missed opportunity there, man. Yeah. That's a bummer. So to me, the whole, definitely sounds like a cool story, but I was expecting something a little more elaborate, I guess. I was expecting to be shocked. And there were points that I was like, that's cool, like when you're explaining this, but
it was a bit underwhelming, right? Like
something with Vader and Thrawn too.
What is this disturbance that really gets Palpatine's attention? But I kind of, when I was explaining to you kind of how it tied back into what he said earlier, that kind of made me realize that's it wasn't anything major. I feel like it was really Palpatine trying to play mind games with Thrawn and Vader, and to get them to, I don't know, not to hang out and be cool with each other, but just hey, I'm going to make them face their past and their future and see how this works out, sort of thing.
Right.
So
what were you talked about plans that Palpatine had for the unknown regions, and he was interested in the unknown regions. Why? What is that where the Death Star was built? Is that why
I don't
he's...
think so. No, I mean, I don't know. Okay, so that was my other thing. I was really, because they mentioned a lot of that in the first book about Thrawn mentions greater enemies in the unknown regions than people realize, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's just the Grisk, that's kind of disappointing. Because to me, the Grisk weren't made out to be these super formidable people. Like they're decently formidable, but they beat them pretty handily, right?
Maybe they're leading up to another Yuzhen Vong type situation.
Kind of crazy.
That'd be kind of cool.
I don't know, but so I was really hoping they didn't say anything about these dangerous people other than the Grisk, which could be what they're getting at. And they really didn't tie into anything with Palpatine's plans. They mentioned it, right? Thrawn said to Vader that that Palpatine has plans in the unknown regions, but they don't really say anything else. But maybe they don't want to go into that yet. Maybe there's a third book on the way. I don't know. We do know within Bloodline, I believe, or is that what the Aftermath series? That's what I'm thinking of. The Aftermath series.
Bloodline.
They have like Gallius Rax. Remember I was telling you about that guy?
Yep. Yeah, that's
I
Aftermath.
thought he might have been Snoke for a little while, but
turns out Snoke's just a little bitch.
Just a bitch. But in that series of books, I believe they mention a lot about like these robots that kind of have Palpatine's face on them, which you can see in Battlefront too.
Right, like quote unquote clones, because you know in Legends,
which is kind of
Palpatine had a shitload of clones, so it's kind of like a mimicking of that in a way. Mm-hmm. They're not exactly the same as clones. They can do, because if I remember correctly from Battlefront, they're it's not like his entire conscience. Right, yeah. It's like limited parts of Palpatine. So like there's like they've been programmed with like certain goals or certain memories, but it's not a head
I haven't played Battlefront
copy.
2 yet, like the story.
Oh,
actually, I haven't played Battlefront 2 much at all.
Well, that's an idea for one of our next podcasts, probably. Yeah. There you go.
But in that, they also mention what they call Palpatine's contingency plan, and they essentially go out.
AKA the First Order?
Yeah, essentially. They go out into the unknown regions with the Super Star Destroyer, which I think may or may not be what becomes Snoke's ship. Maybe not. It's some Super Star Destroyer, like one of the biggest ones ever. And the female commander of the Empire at the time, she's in several of the books. Can't remember her name off the top of my head. She mentioned she says something about First Order, but they don't it's not in all capital, like something about starting
everything we're talking about right now is part of the Aftermath.
Part of the Aftermath series, yeah. So
essentially, what you're saying is that
he still does have this plan in the unknown regions. We know that because of the Aftermath series. I was just kind of hoping that they would start to detail some setup to that plan, or why he's doing it. I guess we kind of know why, because in the Aftermath series, he does say something along the lines of any empire that lets its leader die doesn't deserve to be around, or something like that. It needs to be started from the ground up, and that they kind of hint that with that's why his contingency plan was to kill the Empire, start the First Order, go all over again.
He's a smart motherfucker, man.
But also, like, if you're the leader and you let yourself die, maybe
you didn't deserve to fucking be the leader. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't talk shit about Palpatine like that. But yeah, that's the book.
He is our boy.
I liked it.
Well, cool, man. I mean, there's nothing to say that there's not going to be a third book. So some of these questions and some of these things that are a little underwhelming, maybe that's underwhelming for a reason, because there's going to be another part to the story.
I hope it's, because with the end of season 4, like we said at the beginning of Rebels, him and I almost said
Ezra.
Banto. Him and Ezra get blasted off into space with the space whales.
You mean DJ?
Yeah. No, dude. No, that ship is sailed. He's
How?
gone.
How is that sailed? How is that ship sailed? That ship has not fucking sailed. Don't kill my dreams, man.
Just like Rey's parents and Snoke, DJ is nobody, and they aren't going to explain it. And that's a topic
they're gonna
for the podcast.
explain it, man. They're gonna. Yeah, well, I'm not going to get into it too much.
Yeah.
So
I hope that the third book kind of starts to get into some of the adventures that that Ezra and Thrawn are getting into with the space whales.
Yeah, something.
And I'd like to see that in like actual cartoons. That'd be cool. Like they come back in the Resistance.
That would be sick, man. That would be sick. No, he already came back. It's DJ. Whatever.
No, I'm talking Thrawn. Fuck
Ezra, you're talking about Thrawn. Well, no, he's gonna be in episode 9, dude. We all know that.
Well, hopefully.
So cool, man. That's the new Thrawn book. Very sweet to hear about Anakin / Vader and Thrawn's relationship and some of the deep and dirty stuff that they got into. I enjoyed what you told me about it. A little underwhelming, I'll agree with you, as far as what the conclusion of some of these plot lines were. But hopefully, again, they have an idea for continuing on this story and possibly a third book.
Yeah.
We'll attach links to the show notes for everything in case you want to go back and do a little bit deeper of a dive. Remember to check us out on Facebook, Twitter. Check out our website, RoTKast.com. We are available on Pocket Cast, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and now Spotify.
Yep. Starting last week, we are officially available on Spotify thanks to Pinecast, our podcasting hosting solution that we use. So shout outs to them for making that super simple. And so if you guys have any comments, any questions, any improvements that we could make, that you guys feel that we can make to just bring a better experience in regards to this style of podcast, this data dump, or anything in general, just go ahead and shoot us an email. Go to our website, RoTKast.com, and click on the contact link. Anything you guys send through there will go straight to us. What would also be helpful is if you guys could leave us some reviews on the podcasting host of your choice, the iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. Those just really help our rankings and help us get up there. So, that's it for this episode of the Rule of Two podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.